Welcome to the Tribal Data Toolbox exercise 14, and this exercise demonstrates how to produce reports and charts for PM filter methods. And this is me laughing because data management requires a sense of humor, and this is Angelique looking intent and helping somebody as she usually does. So this exercise says follow the reports and charts SOP, which is the same SOP that we used in the previous exercise, but now we're in the middle of it, where the topic goes from continuous methods to filter methods, reports and charts. So we're in this SOP, and you can see it shows what we have in front of us and tells us to click the filter methods, QC, and data, reports, and charts button. So we click that, and we go to the exercise, and the question is, what must the average flow be in order for the toolbox to consider the check passing for the data that was imported from Site 2? And for the period shown, did the average flow ever fail to pass this check for either instrument? And then we have a hint. Use the filter run data summary report button, because whenever you see data summary and that's in a report, you know there'll probably be some summary statistics. So we go into that, and we know we're looking at Site 2, PM 2.5, 2006, from 8/6 to 8/22, and we'll just set this to be 8/24. And you see the report that we're looking for is over here, reports and charts for the data. And over here, we've got QC reports and charts. So the filter run data summary looks at values for the analyzers during the 24 hours they ran. And you can see that they have in parentheses, after the value that actually was produced by the analyzer, you can see that in parentheses there's the limits. So we see that the average flow was 16.7 liters per minute, and it needs to be within 5% of 16.67 liters per minute for PM 2.5, or 10% of 1.13 for highballs to pass. And so this is a passing check, and we know that the toolbox has a rule that the average flow must be within 5% of this set point flow rate to pass. And so we go back into our exercise and we type that in, and we are ready for the next question, which is, how many days from the sampling period must the filter be weighed in order for the toolbox to consider this check passing? So we want to look at a report that shows us information about the weighing lab. So we go back into the toolbox. Now remember, to get out of a print preview, you click the print preview tab, and that shows the ribbon here, and then that reveals this lower X. And what we're interested now is how long it took for the lab to weigh the filter. So the time elapsed between when it was picked up and when it was weighed. So let's look at the filter lab data summary report. Click on it to make it larger, and we can also use these buttons here. And we can see that we're looking at a sampling start date of 8/6 and a sampling end date of 8/7. So we could either scroll through the pages to find the start date that we're looking for. Here we go, a sampling start date of 8/18. And the number of days between the sampling period and the gross weigh date, 17. And that's fewer than 30, as it states here the requirement is. So we know it passed. Now, in order to get out of this, again, I'm going to close the print preview tab, close print preview button. And you can see I left this whole date range here. You can make things more specific by changing the date range so you don't have to scroll through the pages. But we'll type that into the answers and go on to the next question, which is, what was the average PM2.5 concentration of both the routine and the co-located samples that had a start date of 8/24? So we know that we're looking at a question about the pollutant data rather than the QC data. So we know that we're going to be over here in the left side of this chart where we've got the monitoring data reports and charts rather than the QC reports and charts. And we're asking for just the date on 8/24. So we might as well be specific and find exactly what we're looking for here by having these dates both be 8/24. And let's click on report for pollutant concentrations for that day. And you can see that it gives us the values for the instrument 3 and instrument 2 and what the filters produced and then produced in terms of the concentration after they were divided by the volume. And the average is 12.04, probably really just 12 micrograms per cubic meter. And we type that in and we can see that we have almost finished this exercise. We are on to question 4. And now this is a question about the flow rate QC performed on the 5th for sampler instrument 3. So let's get back into the toolbox, close the print preview, and we're looking at okay, so we go back into our toolbox and we have instrument site 2, PM 2.5, 2006, automatically populated dates, and we go over here and click the flow rate check record under QC, and it says no data are available in the toolbox for your selection. Wait a second, we know we had flow rate QCs. Well, one thing to keep in mind is these date boxes automatically populate based upon the actual monitoring data, the pollutant data, not the QC. So we know we did a check on the 5th. So we can go ahead and change that 6 to a 5. And then let's just go ahead and take the end date all the way through the 30th. And then we click on flow rate check record and it pulls up the checks that we did on the 5th. So you see we've got instrument 3 is on the second part of this page. And you can see that it shows the different flow rate QC checks, including for a check at 17 liters per minute flow rate, and the sampler had a reported flow rate of 17.1, and that's a difference of 0.59%. So we will go ahead and type that into our answer, and then we are ready for the next question, which is, what is the average net weight of 2 filter blank samples collected during August 2006 at Site 2? So we go back into our toolbox, get out of print preview by clicking the tab and then the close print preview button. And we are interested in a date range. Let's just make sure we capture all of August by going from 8/1 through 8/30. And we're going to be looking at QC. So we're over here in this column and we want to click a field blank comparison, right? Where we're looking at the blanks produced for the month of August from these co-located samplers. So we click there, we zoom in on it, and we see that we have the blank from Site 2, Instrument 2 on the 5th, and Site 2, Instrument 2 on the 29th, and the average of the difference between the average blanks, was 0.005, which is great. You want it to be low. You don't want your blanks picking up anything. So we go back into the exercise and we type that in, 0.005. And again, what's critical is, I'm going to get out of print preview, close the print preview button. What's critical is that you check these values and make them all encompassing to include the data that you want, to make sure that you capture the data, even though the automatically populated dates are based upon sampling data, like routine pollutant data. You may have QC data that's outside of the pollutant data date range. So what we want to do is select this date range. So let's just have it go from 8:30 to 8:30 and just get the data that we want. And then we know we have a question about QC. So we're going to be over here, and we're interested in precision. So let's do a report on precision just for the date that we're interested in. And it comes up here, and you can see that we've got a routine sampler with a filter number, a co-located sampler, and we've got the concentrations here, which are very close, and 1.55 or about 1.6%, or probably really rounded to 2% difference, and that passes. That's a very, very close agreement between the routine and the co-located. So we go back into our exercise and type this in. Also to note, one thing that people get tripped up on is if their co-located values don't show up. The rule that the routine and co-located filters for the same sampling period must agree to less than 14% applies only when both concentrations are greater than 3 micrograms per cubic meter. Because of course, when you've got really, really low concentrations, you can have a tiny percent difference and it'll blow up this percent difference between them. So this rule only applies when both the filters from the routine and the co-located are greater than 3 micrograms per cubic meter. So that is the end of exercise 14. I'm going to get out of the print preview, close print preview, exit form, and we are ready for the next exercise.